we all have the sphere of influence. Every one of us. I don't care if you're top of the pole, bottom of the pole, anywhere in between. We all have this incredible ability and potential to be impactful change agents.
Welcome to the Work Matters podcast, the podcast exploring the powerful connection between faith and work. Each episode features practical, real-life conversations around topics like Christian leadership, calling, workplace culture, entrepreneurship, spiritual growth, purpose-driven work, and what it means to honor God through your career and influence. So whether you're leading a business, serving customers, building spreadsheets, working in a factory, or simply want deeper meaning in your work, this podcast will encourage and inspire you to see your work as sacred and transformational. So let's dive in. I am so excited to be able to have this conversation with an amazing group of guys. It's a father and sons trio, Dave, Jason, and Caleb Hataj. Guys, thanks so much for being on the Work Matters podcast.
Thanks for having us, Brandon.
Thank you.
And being a trio, we don't have to sing, do we?
You don't have to sing yet. That might come at the end. But be ready. Hey, let me tell our audience about the Hatags. The Hatags, Dave Hataj, owner-operator of Edgerton Gear, located in America's heartland. Edgerton Gear is a Wisconsin-based custom gear manufacturer, precision machine shop that combines old-world craftsmanship with new-world technology. Since 1962, Edgerton Gear has grown steadily, winning the loyalty of its customers by producing consistently high-quality components on schedule and at competitive prices. Dave is a second-generation president and owner, a journeyman machinist. By age 21, he has his master's from Regent College and a doctorate of transformational leadership as well. He's the author of Good Work, How Blue-Collar Business Can Change Lives, Communities, and the World, and the founder of Craftsman with Character. I also have the privilege of having Caleb and Jason with us as well. Caleb is the VP of Operations and a machinist, and doing that for about a dozen or so years. Is that right, Caleb?
Yep.
Awesome. And then we've got Jason as well, who's VP of Finance and HR, who absolutely loves people, loves culture, loves investing in other people. So, guys, did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. I think you covered it pretty well.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being on. Dave, I want to start with you. When did it click? When was the idea that God really does care about what you do, about your work? When did that start for you?
Well, I think the bigger story, I did it reluctantly. I had phenomenal mentors who really taught me that God is a God not just of saving souls, but he cares about all of us in the kingdom and the creation mandate. So I went all the way up to Regent College in Vancouver back in 1990, I think it was, and I got my master's on theology of work and what that looks like. And I thought it sounded great theoretically, but then while I was there, I had to take one of those classes that says, what color's your parachute, what's your giftedness, and all that. And the bigger story is I swore I'd never come back to Edgerton Gear. There's no way. It was toxic. We had a quarter-barrel beer in the lunchroom fridge. Didn't want anything to do with it. And while I was there, I had one of those that class came back and it said, guess what? Because everybody had me pegged to be a pastor, right? And the class came back and it said, quote, you are ideally suited to run a small family-run manufacturing company.
Oh, wow.
And I screamed, no, God, I don't want to do that. Please don't make me go home. And so for the last 34 years, my journey has been figuring out how Jesus is relevant, even in a blue-collar machine shop.
Wow. I love that. So you're sitting in that classroom, you come up with this test result that says, hey, you'd be a great fit to be able to work in this shop, to be able to run it. And by the way, the test didn't know that, but your family had that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something you grew up in, but didn't really want to go back in. I know a little bit of your story. And so did you, what was that like when that conversation with God? Did you wrestle with him a little bit, push back on him?
I wrestled with him even 20 years after being back here because this place it felt like my prison. Because when you'd wrestle with so much dysfunction, in a company, and there's alcoholism in our family background, and it was permeated throughout the whole company. It was a very dark, dark place. So to come back, and I can't tell you how many times I'm like, Lord, please, can I leave now? Can I leave now? What is the purpose of being here? And I get that making gears. I often say, modern civilization would not exist without us blue collar people knowing how to make stuff and build stuff. And Edgerton Gear, our gears are literally all over the world. And that's cool. But at the same time, like, God, but do I have to be here? Don't you have something better for me to do? And I think it took me 20 years to finally wake up and realize, man, this is exactly where he wants me.
So where were you when you realized that? Were you in the shop? Were you taking a walk? What was it that just you were finally like, okay, God, I'm here. I've been fighting you for 20 years on it. I get it now.
I was actually in bed, and another sleepless night, just wrestling. Like, man, life is so hard. There's times I was working 14, 16-hour days, dealing with a lot of toxicity in the shop. And orders kept pouring in because you do things in an ethical way. You get customers. I mean, people appreciate what you do. And I would pray, Lord, can you turn off the spigot? We don't need as many orders. And every time I prayed that, more orders would come in. And I'm just like, I'm at the end of my rope. I've got 3 young boys at that point. And I'm like, what do you want from me? And it was an honest argument. And I'm not exaggerating. I finally said, laying in bed that night, Lord, if you want to kill me on the shop floor and have me die out there from just overwork, fine. I give up. I give up trying to fight you. And it was it was weird. That was the turning point. It was like the point of I finally surrendered to whatever he wanted, and everything started to change. I mean,
Mm.
it became manageable. I mean, everything changed for the positive. And I think in my own heart, it was, this is where I really need to be, and that's great. And I often say, my prison over the next 10 years, my prison went to my happy place, where I
Mm.
realized this is where God planted me, and embraced that. And it's been phenomenal to see what God's done, through the business and through our family.
Yeah. When I hear your story, I think about Jonah. I mean, God just, he had a plan for that guy. And Jonah's like, nope, I'm going the other way. And
Uh huh.
he finally gets spit out from that whale and he comes up. And I'm curious, like when you got spit out after that 20 years and the next 10 years becomes your happy place, how did you change the place though? And the culture to where it did become the happy place for you?
Well, I've been working on changing the culture for 20 years, and so that was already built into my theology, but I personally wasn't happy. So I think by becoming so at peace with this is where I need to be, and I went through some health issues too. That's another part of the story where I was just struggling from severe burnout. And so the funny thing is I had to cut back some hours and start releasing some of the control. And I had some employees who said, so when I came back and got healthier, and through that experience, I became much more at peace and much more joyful and less stressed out. I know you guys saw that at home too. And I lost a couple employees at that when I came out of that, because one of them in particular said, you're way too chill. You're way too at peace. I want the old Dave back. I want the hard driving,
Wow.
sometimes and butt chewing sort of guy that rules with an iron fist. And we need that guy. I'm like, that's too stressful.
Mm.
And I just need to trust God with everything that's going on in the shop, and just be more at peace and walk day to day in striving to be obedient and love people and love people through their issues. And I think the whole culture, well, I know the whole culture started to change because, Brandon, as you know, leadership, no matter good leadership, bad leadership, it comes through who we are on the inside. And so if we're toxic, we're spreading toxicity. If we're
Right.
healthy, we're spreading health. And so for me, it was getting to that happier, better place that I know I'm in God's will. Let me embrace it and release control. Let him do what he wants. And that's, I think, when things really started to change. I
Wow.
mean, you came back then, right
Yeah.
after, because
I was gonna
Caleb.
I was gonna ask you guys, Caleb, what was that like? Um, was there a change in dad? Did you guys see that? I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I think I ended up getting the grunt of the stress side of that for sure.
Growing up.
Yeah, I still remember having nightmares about, being scared of dad just because he'd get angry and yell 'cause he'd be so burned out and
Depressed.
yeah. And I mean, it was tough. But coming back, in a way, it was like coming back to a different dad in a lot of ways.
Wow.
And I really didn't know. I'm a very much go with the flow kind of guy. I don't plan things out very much. I'm very much a set my expectations low and let them be exceeded if possible. So I went off to school to be a mechanical engineer, realized I didn't like math as much as I needed to. And so I switched to a manufacturing degree, and coming home just kind of made sense. I grew up working here for over winter breaks and doing grunt work, cleaning machines and whatnot, but it just made sense. I wouldn't say there was a defining moment for me where I was like, yeah, I really need to go back to Edgerton Gear. But I think God just had his hand on where I was going in life, and here I am.
Yep. Wow. So when you were in college and you were thinking about this and you changed your degree or you moved that in debt, did you and dad have a conversation? Or were you just like, hey, I want to come back and work? Or was dad like, hey, I think you need to come work with me?
So I worked at 2 different machine shops in that college town. And it really gave me a lot of good perspective because one shop was super hard, super strict, just the exact opposite of being an easygoing company.
Really super controlling.
Yeah, very, very overbearing and controlling, micromanaging. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was only there for 3 months, and I realized that's not the shop I want to work in. And then I went from that to another shop where my first day on the job, I was on second shift. My only coworker went home and they handed me the key to the building and said, "You're closing up by yourself today." Right.
Oh, wow.
So I got 2 completely opposite extremes of how to run or how a manufacturing business can be operated. And after my wife graduated that year, that was the kind of the moment where I was like, man, there's something special back at home. I think I want to go back and work there. So I ended up convincing my wife to move away from her parents back home here. And kind of the rest is history for working here now, 10 years later.
Wow,
10 years
that's
later.
neat. That's really neat. So Jason, what about your story? How'd you end up back here?
Yeah, well, I think tying into the change in my dad, it's one of the things that I thought was really powerful growing up is he tells stories by nature, and every night at the dinner table, he would tell stories of what was going on in the workplace. And his faith was such that it was every week he would have stories where he would say, I woke up this morning and this word popped in my head, or this verse popped in my head, or this message from God popped in my head. I went to work and then all these things happened that God prepared me for in my morning prayer time. And so I think from a very young age, there's just instilled, at least in me, I saw that and I said, God's real. God is active and is interested in our everyday life in the little things. And I'm very thankful for that perspective and growing up seeing that. But as Caleb said, yeah, he changed a lot over the years. And I think it's easy sometimes for people to have resentment towards maybe the bad parts of all of us, or towards your parents. And his humility over the years, just how honest he is with his problems and areas that he's had to improve, has made it really easy to build relationship with him as an adult, because we can have really honest conversations about the times when he was really stressed out and yelling when we were younger, and reconcile and heal those wounds. And I think that's been really pivotal towards all 3 of us boys having quality relationships with him as an adult.
Well, remember we took a canoe trip, backpacking trip to Isle Royale way up in Lake Superior. And the reason I wanted to take all 3 of them on that and recreate my honeymoon trip with my wife, which was do not take your wife on a honeymoon backpack canoe trip. That's any word of wisdom to your listeners. That's it right there, man. You're going to pay for it for the rest of your marriage.
We got halfway through that trip and we all looked at Dad like, what were you thinking? You were so stupid. Why would you take Mom here?
Yeah. We could stop the podcast right here and save a lot of marriages in the future. Yeah, that's right.
But the point of that trip, I personally call it my apology tour, where I wanted to sit down with all 3 of my sons and apologize for the times that I was a bad father, when I was so angry, when I took out all my frustration and depression on them. And I know for me, that was extremely pivotal and important for me to ask for their forgiveness, and praying that I can be a better father.
Wow. Praise the Lord for that. What a gift. At Work Matters, we say that God uses our work to form and shape us into the image of his son, that we get discipled through work. We talk so many times, we just think of discipleship, in a church setting, or we disciple for marriage, and we disciple for parenting, and we disciple for finances. But rarely do we talk about the discipleship of work. And yet work was what was one of the catalysts to help change your life, Dave, but change the life of your family.
Right.
That's what I hear. And it took brokenness. It took yielding to God. It took trusting God and going into something you really didn't want to go into. And I just think for our listeners, there's a lot of folks out there going to be listening to this that are wondering, man, am I where I'm supposed to be? I feel like I'm not sure if I should. I'm trying to separate my family from my work, but I'm not doing a good job of that. And I just want to, what would you tell them just in all of that? Like, what would you tell them to do with where they are right now?
Well, I think for me over the years, it's our culture lives with this mentality that if things are painful, get out, run away. If it's difficult, stressful. And I know God, all of us, we learn through our failures, through our struggles. I mean, that's just the biblical model of growth. And so fortunately, I had a couple really great mentors who taught me that the Christian life is about obedience. And that's how God's going to form you and grow you. And I know for our family history, there's so much dysfunction going back generations, where my grandfather literally was a Skid Row bum, street person in the streets of Chicago. And so all the wounds that my dad had from his father, a lot of those were passed down to me. And so the challenge was, how do I stop a lot of that dysfunction, that legacy that we lived with, so it doesn't get passed on? And what it exposed in me, and the stress of the shop exposed, like, I've got a lot of demons to work through and a lot of brokenness, and I have to be super introspective. And I realized over the years that God uses that stress to expose my woundedness. And if it's not exposed, how do you deal with it if you're not in touch with that? So when the anger and the frustration and the depression came out, I'm realizing a lot of that was related to the lack of affirmation from my father. And it was some of the wounds that he experienced that got passed on to me. So I often tell people, man, if it's hard, we're actually talking about this morning in class with the students that I've got, you got to embrace the suck, right? I mean, seriously, embrace the suck.
Hold on. Let's say that you've got to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Like when it's just terrible.
Yeah. And figure out, why does it suck? Why is it hard? What is God trying to teach me? I mean, right now, the three of us, this has been a sucky week. I mean, this is like a week of Mondays for us right now. And this is Thursday. 4 of our top office staff are out for various reasons. So, and we are busier than we've ever been in the history of the company. All 3 of us are ridiculously stressed out. So the timing of this podcast is really funny for us. And so I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I'm going, Lord, what do you want to teach me? What's going on? And Crystal Gale's song, I Speak Jesus, came to my mind. Sung that all morning when I was doing chores, feeding the cows, and knowing what we have to face today. And without the suck, I wouldn't have had that perspective. And so my whole morning was, Lord, what do you want to do here today? And crying out to him in the midst of the stress to help him, to have him help us live his life the way he wants us to. And so without the suck, I wouldn't be praying that prayer, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was talking to somebody this week as well, just about how Sunday morning I get taught and I get equipped, I get encouraged. But man, Monday mornings when my faith is tested. And it sounds like you've had Monday morning 4 days in a row.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm curious now, what's it like to work with each other?
Oh, it blows my mind how well it's working, and I expected conflict. I expected a honeymoon period, but we're 8 months into it, and I go back to when I announced and talked to both of them. It was a year ago in November that I said I feel like I need to start stepping back. What are you guys ready to step up? Jason, do you want to come back or not? And Monday morning when I came in after talking to Jason, I told Caleb about, hey, this is what I think what God's telling me to do. What's your thoughts? And you said,
I want Jason.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Why did you say that?
Yeah, why did you say that? Good question.
I wanted Jason to come back to Edgerton Gear because I knew he had a perspective that I didn't have. I felt like I was lacking enough that he would be able to make up those differences.
That's cool.
Because we're both different sides of Dad in that aspect. Dad kind of is a full package in some ways.
Yeah. The full package. Yes, he is. So, Caleb and Jason, I got one more question for you. For our younger audience out there, the ones that are just starting into their careers, just getting into their first jobs and stuff, share with them what has being back at the family business, working with Dad, working with each other, what is God doing in you? What is God showing you about you and about work?
Yeah, I think I've been on a journey. I mean, maybe being in a little bit more of the traditional Christian sphere where work is secular and your purpose there is to save souls, and you do good work because you want to make a good impression on people so you can preach the gospel. With my dad's theology, that is more, as you kind of said at the start, work in itself is good, and work in and of itself is according to God. Like, God made it good. He made it so we need to build civilization. He made us to work together and accomplish things and build things. And there's an inherent goodness to it when you're within God's plans and you're where He has placed you and the work He has given you. And that in and of itself is good and a great thing to do. And so I think that's maybe a perspective that in the Christian world you don't see as much, of people viewing work as something that's good to do simply because it's good, and finding gratitude and purpose and fulfillment in that, instead of skewing it into something it's not, where it always has to be about this ulterior motive. It's like, no, like the work is just good, and good things come out of that. When you're walking in God's plans for you, He leads you into conversations with people. He helps you impact and serve other people. And just this week, as we were saying, we have multiple office employees that are having personal emergencies while 2 other office employees are on vacation. And I've been thinking a lot about, okay, I'm thankful I get to serve my coworkers while they're having a hard week, rather than an attitude of, oh, this just sucks. But it's like, no, it's an opportunity to serve, and it's an opportunity to bless others. And this is a work that God has given me, and it's good, and I can appreciate that in and of itself.
He's embracing the suck.
Yeah, embracing the suck.
Caleb, what about you? What do you feel like God's doing in you and showing you through the work you're doing?
That's a tough question for me. I'm not as philosophical as these two. My largest struggles are, honestly, probably keeping God in my thoughts throughout the day. I have a very obsessive personality. I get hyper focused on one thing at a time. I'm trying to solve different problems around the shop. And like I said earlier, I'm very much just kind of go with the flow and just live in the moment. So I wouldn't say I'm actively, how do I say this? I'm not actively searching for God's word throughout the day, but I just know that He's got a hand in what's going on. And I just try to do the best that I can wherever I am. Whether that's helping people around the shop with different problems, working on different software that will save people time and make their jobs easier, ordering different tooling, doing research. There's all these things that I can do that are true to God's kingdom and embrace that goodness, that I think inherently just brings glory to God.
Wow. I love
and as
that.
a father, real quick, I'll interject, because I know Caleb struggles with that question a little bit, but he nailed it. I mean, he is serving throughout the day without being intentionally, spiritual. but he
Yeah.
really is. He's living it out by how I watch him serve the customers, serve especially employees. Jason may be more articulate when it comes to that, but they're two sides of the same coin. Really,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Absolutely. And I hear that too. And for those that are listening as well, and just for Caleb, your dad and I, we've been working for over 30 something years, 40 something years, and we still, it is a struggle. Keep God fresh on our minds, thinking through it from a biblical and godly perspective on how to handle a situation, how to handle an employee, how to handle a decision. I mean, it's still a struggle, but the fact that you recognize it and recognize that, it is about people and it is about God and what he's doing there is so good. And so I just encourage our listeners as well, just, keep going, right? Keep practicing that discipline, keep trying to think about God while you're right where you are and keep serving the people around you. And so Dave, I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
And it really is for our listeners. Just what can they do to pay more attention to God right where they are? Or how can they put their faith more into practice? What would you say are 3 things they could do, Dave?
Well, I think we've all grown up with really bad theology, and Jason hinted at that partly. That's only about saving souls, and God, and mostly God's concerned about Sunday and worship and so on. But I think it's, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, his goodness, really true inner goodness. And so for me, those moments of goodness, seeking God's kingdom, they happen moment by moment, decision by decision. And I think the bad theology is that, God in heaven, he's up there looking down on us. No, God is interested in the details, super details of our lives. So for me, the first thing is being aware of that and really believing that God wants to be involved in the details. The second thing I would say is we are broken. We are all broken. So part of the issue, every day we wake up, we struggle with that faith. We struggle, is God really involved? Or I just don't want to be a faithful person today. I'm just beat up. I'm selfish. I don't want to embrace the suck, right? So the second thing I would say is we all need to take some time. And for me, it's my morning routine. I wake up, do my stuff, and then I sit quietly and I go, what am I feeling today? And often the anxiety that I'm feeling is pointing at more of my brokenness that I need to confront and deal with. Because again, if we don't understand that, we give who we are, and that toxicity comes out. But if I can admit every day, Lord, I need you, work in me and through me, I become a life-giving force rather than a toxic force, right?
Yeah.
Third thing, I'll have to ponder it for a second. Okay, I've pondered it. I think the third thing is that we have to understand that we all have the sphere of influence. Every one of us. I don't care if you're top of the pole, bottom of the pole, anywhere in between. We all have this incredible ability and potential to be impactful change agents. And I think we need to recognize and be inspired to realize often we are exactly where God wants us to be, no matter how difficult or how hard it may get. And, especially entering the workforce for the first time, you may think you hardly have any influence. It's amazing when you open up your life to allow the Holy Spirit to work through you. You can, without even trying, you can change the heart of the mind of that butthole. Boy, I shouldn't say that, but that really bad manager or whoever you're working with, right? And I've got some guys in the shop floor. Oh my gosh, you know who I'm talking about. You can be an agent of grace and mercy, and when you allow the Spirit of God to work through you, it is mind blowing the influence you can have. So
I love that. So recognize that God's just not up in heaven looking down upon, but God is actively at work where I am.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, recognize the brokenness in myself, the brokenness around me. Recognize that we are a broken people trying to make it work in a broken world, right? And engage God in that. Be painfully aware of my own brokenness as I step into my day. And lastly, I heard you say, the third thing I heard you say was, you have influence right where you are. Yeah. Regardless of the circumstance, regardless of how good or how bad it is, you can embrace the suck right where you are and still have influence for the kingdom in the work that you do. tell our audience, how can they find out more about you, more about your company, more about Craftsman with Character? Where can they go?
Well, our website for our company is edgertongear.com, spelled out. Craftsman with Character is craftsmanwithcharacter.org. So either place. Our website for Craftsman with Character, I encourage your listeners or watchers to take a look at it. We've redone our website even since I was with you in October. Some really cool things are happening. But cool. And a shameless plug, Brandon, my second book is coming out now. And that's actually called The Craftsman Code.
Thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation. So thankful for what the work God is doing in you and through you at Edgerton Gear. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Work Matters podcast. I want to invite you to take the next step today in living out your faith through your work by taking our online course, the Work Matters Institute. This transformational 10-session faith and work course helps Christians connect Sunday faith to Monday work through practical teaching, spiritual formation, leadership development, and discipleship for the workplace. Taking this course will equip you to live and lead with greater clarity, purpose, integrity, and influence. To learn more or start the course today, visit workmatters.org, because God is at work in every kind of work.